Every night at 11:47, the dead part of the dial wakes up. Not with music, not with sports, not with anything that belongs on 660 anymore. It begins with a carrier tone so clean it almost sounds artificial. Then there is a breath. Then a voice, compressed thin by the bandpass. Warm the way old radio always sounds warm when it should be cold. The first time I heard it, I thought it was an old aircheck playing from one of my own machines. The second time, I thought it was a pirate. The third time, I disconnected the antenna. The voice kept talking. And every night after that, the first sentence was the same. The show never ended. You just stopped listening. My name is Caleb Rourke. I restore audio for a living. Most of my work is boring in the way honest work is boring. I clean hiss out of cassette interviews. I transfer quarter-inch tape before the oxide sheds. I repair bad splices. I save church choirs, union meetings, local commercials, community radio shows, courthouse recordings, dead bands, old jingles, reels from basements, and boxes of cassettes labeled in handwriting from people who are no longer alive. I live in Brooklyn, in a third-floor apartment that shakes when trucks turn too fast on Atlantic Avenue. My desk faces a window. On clear nights, if the air is right, I can see the red blink of towers far enough away that they look like warnings instead of structures. I own 3 AM receivers, 2 shortwave sets, 1 software-defined radio, a half-broken reel-to-reel deck, a Nakamichi cassette machine that has survived more abuse than I have, and a small rack of preamps that hum if the building's heat comes on. None of this made me special. That matters. I was not chosen because I was important. I was chosen because I listened carefully. The project began with a box of New York radio material purchased from an estate sale in Queens. The labels were ordinary enough. WNBC, WEEF references, commercial reels, station IDs, aircheck fragments, some sports talk leftovers. A few unmarked cassettes with dates from the late 80s. A few older reels, probably dubs of dubs, the kind of thing collectors keep because throwing away recorded voices feels wrong. The 660 frequency has a long memory in New York. Anyone who knows radio knows that. The names changed. The formats changed. The ownership changed. The sound of the city moved through that channel for decades. Then history changed its clothes and kept walking. That was all I expected to find. History. Noise. A little grief. I was digitizing material for a private archive. Not for broadcast. Not for a documentary. Just preservation. The job was to stabilize the recordings, catalog the reels, remove only the damage, not the age, and deliver files that sounded like they had survived naturally. I had the first reel on the deck around 10:30 p.m. Old station IDs, old compression, that gorgeous flattened AM voice that makes everything sound more important than it is. I remember thinking the room felt crowded, which is something audio engineers understand. Play enough dead voices through good monitors and your room stops feeling empty. Not haunted, just occupied by evidence. At 11:42, I finished a transfer and stopped the reel. At 11:44, I heard a tone. Not from the tape machine, not from the monitors, from the old AM receiver on the shelf above my desk. I keep that receiver tuned around the low end because sometimes I compare archival AM curves against live band noise. Usually 660 is not empty. It is not a dead hole in the world. It carries modern programming now. But that night, the radio was not behaving like a modern station. No sports talk, no call-in cadence, no present-day processing, just a single carrier. Thin, stable, too clean. I turned the volume up. At 11:47 p.m., a voice came through. Not loud, not dramatic, A man's voice, late night relaxed, the kind of DJ voice that does not need to prove it belongs in the room. The show never ended. You just stopped listening. Then music started. Except it was not music exactly. It was the shape of music. A jingle with the center removed. Brass without brass. A vocal line where the vowels had survived and the consonants had been rubbed away. I recorded 38 seconds before the signal collapsed back into ordinary static. I named the file 600,000.wave. I went to bed around 2 a.m. after failing to identify the source. That was my first mistake. I treated it like a source. The next day, I did what any technician would do. I assumed I had missed something simple. Receiver image. Local oscillator issue. Overload from another transmitter. Intermodulation. Bad shielding. A neighbor's antique radio with a transmitter attachment. A pirate playing old New York radio clips because people do strange things when nostalgia and equipment meet. I repeated the test on another receiver. Nothing. I checked the waterfall display from the SDR. Nothing unusual before 11:47. I searched the files I had transferred earlier. No match. I opened the old reels again and listened for the phrase. The show never ended. You just stopped listening. Nothing. That line was not in the archive. At 11:20 the next night, I set up properly. One receiver on the shelf. One SDR into the laptop. One small loop antenna near the window. One long wire down the hallway. Ugly and ridiculous and effective. I printed a log sheet because I still trust paper when machines start telling complicated stories. At 11:40, ordinary band noise. At 11:44, a slight rise at 660. At 11:46 and 30 seconds, the carrier separated from the noise floor. At 11:47 exactly, the same voice returned. The show never ended. You just stopped listening. Then a time check. Not a normal time check. Not the weather. Not traffic. Not a call sign. Just this. It is 11:47 in the city, and every clock that forgot us is about to remember. I stopped breathing for a few seconds. You can hear it on the recording. There is a tiny shift in the room tone because my chest stopped moving near the desk microphone. The jingle came back. This time it was clearer. Still incomplete, still wrong, but structured. 4 notes, a pause, 3 notes, a station bed that almost resolved into a call sign and then avoided it, like a mouth refusing to form a name. I ran the fragment through spectral repair software. The software identified harmonic content consistent with speech under the music. I isolated it. It was not a word. It was my room. Not metaphorically. The underlayer contained the 60-cycle hum from my apartment, the little buzz at 312 Hz from the cheap LED lamp near my desk, and the faint hard drive chatter from the laptop I had used the night before. That should not be possible. Broadcast audio can pick up noise from the receiving environment after reception. That is normal. But this noise was inside the transmitted material. It had the compression characteristics of the signal itself. My room was not being picked up by my microphone. My room had been broadcast back to me. I want to be careful here. There is a point in every investigation when a person can either keep describing what happened or start dramatizing it. I am not going to dramatize. I am going to tell you the order in which the facts failed. Third night, 11:47 p.m. I used battery power for the receiver. Laptop unplugged. Desk lamp off. Phone in airplane mode. Preamp disconnected. Only one recorder, running on internal batteries, placed 12 feet from the radio. The signal came through. The show never ended. You just stopped listening. This time the DJ laughed softly after the line. Not a movie laugh. Not evil. Just tired. Then he said something that made me feel, for the first time, that whatever was happening had noticed the test. He said, "Clean your left channel, Caleb. My name is common enough." That is what I told myself. Caleb is not rare. Brooklyn is full of people. Maybe some pirate had found my website. Maybe this was targeted. Weird, illegal, obsessive, but human. The left channel remark was harder. Earlier that week, I had made a mistake in my restoration chain. One cable was seated badly. The left channel had a faint, intermittent crackle. I had fixed it and made a note in my private project log. The note was not online. The file was local. No one had that phrase. "Clean your left channel, Caleb." The DJ let the words hang over the carrier, and then the dead jingle played again. The missing syllables filled in for half a second. Not enough to identify. Enough to feel familiar. I shut the receiver off. The recorder kept capturing the sound. That was the first real proof that this was not radio in the ordinary sense. I turned the receiver off at 11:49:12. On the recorder file, the carrier continues until 11:49:18. 6.6 seconds after power off. I know how that sounds. Capacitors can hold charge. Speakers can pop. Circuits can bleed down. They do not continue receiving intelligible modulation for 6.6 seconds after power removal. I repeated the test with a different radio. Same result. Power off. 6.6 seconds of continued audio. Then silence. Not gradual. Cut. Like a gate closing. On the fourth night, I tried not to listen. That may sound ridiculous, but attention changes you when you work with audio. You can train your hearing until you start finding patterns where none exist. You can destroy your objectivity by wanting the signal to appear. So I set everything to record and left the room. At 11:47, the signal appeared. I know because I checked the file later. For the first 2 minutes, the broadcast behaved like before. Carrier. Phrase. Jingle. Soft bed of static. Then the DJ said, "He is in the hallway pretending distance is protection." I was in the hallway. I had not made a sound. I had not stepped heavily. The recorder was in the room. The radio was in the room. I was outside the room, standing still, holding my breath, feeling absurdly like a child hiding from a parent who already knows which closet door is closed. The DJ continued. "He can hear us better from there." That was when I went back inside and pulled every cable from the wall. The file continued for 6.6 seconds. Then silence. I spent the 5th day trying to make it human again. Human explanations are frightening sometimes, but they have edges. A stalker has a body. A transmitter has a location. A hoax has an author. Even cruelty is easier to understand than a system with no person inside it. I scanned the band. I checked online SDRs outside New York. I asked 2 engineers I know to monitor 660 at 11:47 without telling them why. One was in New Jersey. One was in Pennsylvania. New Jersey heard nothing unusual. Pennsylvania heard a carrier swell, but no voice. Both thought it was ordinary night propagation. That was the first false relief. The phenomenon was local. Maybe my building. Maybe my wiring. Maybe a device in the neighborhood. A problem with walls. I can solve walls. At 11:47 on the 5th night, I placed the receiver in the bathtub because the bathroom had the least electrical noise. I ran the recorder from the hallway. I put a second recorder in my bedroom. I put a third recorder in the kitchen. I took photographs of every connection. The signal came through on the bathroom receiver. The bedroom recorder captured it too. The kitchen recorder captured it faintly. The hallway recorder captured it best. That made no sense. The hallway had no receiver. Only a recorder. The dead frequency was no longer behaving like something received by equipment. It was behaving like something choosing where to be audible. At 11:48, the DJ said the line again, but changed one word. The show never ended. You just stopped speaking. Then the broadcast bed dropped away, and a tone pulsed 6 times, 0.66 seconds apart. I measured it. I measured it again. I measured it a 3rd time because denial sometimes looks like precision. 6 pulses, 0.66 seconds apart. Then a 7th pulse delayed by 6.60 seconds. Then 66 seconds of almost pure carrier. Under that carrier, there was breathing. My breathing. But not live. Delayed. I know the rhythm of my own anxiety because microphones have taught it to me. I breathe through my nose when I am concentrating. I hold at the top of the breath when I am afraid. The recording under the carrier had both patterns, but offset, layered, repeated. At first I thought it was feedback from the room. Then I found the impossible part. The breathing under the broadcast began 3 seconds before I entered the bathroom. There is a phrase engineers use when the problem is not one problem, but a chain of problems pretending to be one. Multiple failure mode. This was not a bad receiver. Not a pirate. Not a ghost story. Not an archive error. Not exactly. It was a system. A system using failures as doors. By the 6th night, I had stopped sleeping normally. I slept in fragments, waking at 3 a.m. with the feeling that a station bed was playing somewhere just below the threshold of hearing. I stopped playing the old reels during the day because I did not trust what might be hidden under them. I turned off every radio in the apartment and still caught myself glancing toward the shelf at 11:47. That evening, I ran a Voiceprint comparison. The unknown DJ had a limited bandwidth, which makes comparison unreliable. Old AM audio strips away detail. You do not get clean sibilance. You lose low-end body. Compression smears peaks. But enough structure remains if the sample is long enough. I compared the DJ against public archives. No match. I compared him against the old aircheck reels. No match. I compared him against my own voice, because I wanted to rule it out. That is the honest reason. Not because I believed it. Because I wanted to watch the software reject the idea. The first match returned 41% similarity. Meaningless. A lot of male voices can overlap in reduced bandwidth. I lowered confidence thresholds and tried again. 53%. Still nothing. I fed in a cleaner sample from the 5th night. 68%. That made me angry. Not afraid at first. Angry. Software can be stupid. Algorithms love false certainty. Human voices are not fingerprints, no matter how much marketing language pretends they are. I recorded myself reading neutral text. Compared it again. 72%. Then I read the DJ's phrase. The show never ended. You just stopped listening. The comparison returned 91%. I closed the program. I sat there for a while with the monitor glow on my hands. Then the AM receiver clicked on by itself. Not powered on. Not mechanically. There is no motor in that radio. But the speaker made the small pressure sound a speaker makes when a circuit wakes up. It was 11:47. The voice came through before the carrier rose. Caleb, do not read ahead. I had not spoken out loud, but the paper on my desk had a list of test phrases. The next phrase on the page was this. This station is not transmitting. The DJ read it perfectly. This station is not transmitting. Then he corrected it. This station is rehearsing. That is the moment I should have left the apartment. I know that. Everyone listening knows that. But leaving is easy advice from outside the event. Inside it, you become convinced that one more test will give the thing a shape. One more measurement will make it obey the world again. One more recording will turn terror into evidence. I told myself I would stop after I proved the signal could not follow me. On the 7th night, I took a portable receiver and walked 3 blocks. No signal at 11:47. I walked 6 blocks. No signal. I went down into the subway station. No signal. I felt almost foolish. Then my phone buzzed. A file had appeared in my cloud backup. I do not keep automatic uploads active for work recordings. I am careful with client archives. But there it was. 660 test 07.wave. Created 11:47 p.m. Size 6.6 megabytes. I downloaded it on the platform. The train came in as I listened, so the first playback was almost drowned by steel and brakes. But I heard enough. My empty apartment, my receiver, my chair creaking. Then the DJ. He is not home tonight. Good. We can use the room without him. The file contained 23 minutes of audio recorded inside my apartment while I was away. I had no recorder running. At least none that I turned on. At 11:53, the file captured my own voice. Not the DJ. Me. Or something close enough that my stomach dropped before my mind understood why. The voice said, "I am returning to the desk now." At that exact moment, according to subway records and the timestamp on a text I sent to myself, I was still underground. I did not return to the desk until 12:16. The recording had me coming home 23 minutes before I did. At 12:16, when I opened my apartment door, the room smelled hot, like dust inside an old amplifier. All the equipment was off. The receiver was dark. The reel-to-reel deck had stopped, but the tape counter had advanced by 660 counts. I did not know it could do that without power. Maybe it cannot. Maybe the number was waiting for me. On the 8th day, I made the mistake that turned this from an investigation into a confession. I opened the old aircheck archive again. I wanted to compare the dead jingle against the WNBC material. The phrase did not match anything, but the music bed kept pulling at my memory. Not melody, texture, the way the brass ducked under the voice, the way the compression breathed, the way the silence before the station ID felt hand-cut. There was an unmarked cassette in the Queen's box. No date, no call letters, just one word on the label. Overnight, I had avoided it because the shell was warped. I transferred it carefully at half speed. Most of it was empty. Not blank tape. Empty broadcast. Hiss. Hiss. Carrier. Distant noise. A faint room tone printed into the tape. Around the 12-minute mark, there was a jingle fragment. The same fragment, but older. Worse quality. More damaged. Under it, a DJ voice came in. Not my DJ. Not the unknown voice from 660. A different man. Older. Maybe from the 70s or early 80s. Speaking as if he was filling time between records. The tape was chewed right where the call letters should have been. But the phrase after it was clear. Still on the air because somebody out there still needs the room. I played it 5 times. Then I heard the background. A second voice, buried deep, too low to be intentional. It was counting. Not numbers. Times. 11:47. 11:47. 11:47. The old tape knew the time before my tests did. I reversed the polarity on one channel to reduce the music bed. I isolated the buried voice. I slowed it. The voice was mine. Older than I am now. Not old as in elderly. Old as in exhausted. Old as in a man who has said the same thing so many times that the sentence has worn grooves in him. It said, "Tell him not to clean the left channel. Tell him the crackle was the lock. Tell him silence is not empty. Tell him the carrier remembers." I stopped the transfer. For the first time I said out loud, "I am not continuing." The room answered through the AM receiver. "You already did." I need to explain the ionosphere because otherwise the rest sounds like magic, and magic is too easy. Radio waves do not simply travel in straight lines and vanish. Medium wave signals can crawl along the ground. At night, changes in the ionosphere can let signals bend, skip, return, interfere, strengthen, and arrive from places that seem too far away. Solar activity can change how radio behaves. The upper atmosphere is not empty. It is a moving electrical skin around the planet. Engineers know this. Radio people know this. Night listeners know this best. At night, the dial gets crowded with ghosts that are not ghosts. Stations from other states slide into gaps. Voices ride over voices. A ball game fades into a preacher, then into a song, then into Spanish, then into nothing. The sky becomes part of the receiver. That was the only path left that did not require me to believe in the impossible. So I checked space weather. I checked geomagnetic data. I checked solar flare reports. I checked ionospheric maps I barely understood, and then read enough to understand them poorly but usefully. The night the signal first appeared, there had been a minor disturbance. Not catastrophic, not special enough for headlines, just enough to change the way radio behaved. On the nights when the 660 signal became clearer, the D-layer absorption and nighttime behavior did not line up with ordinary reception. That is a careful sentence. I am not saying the sun made a dead station talk. I am saying the normal explanation failed in the direction of the sky. The more disturbed the radio environment became, the clearer the dead frequency sounded. That is backwards, if the signal is coming from where signals usually come from. It makes a terrible kind of sense if the signal is using the disturbed path not to travel, but to assemble itself, like a reflection that only appears when the glass is cracked. At 11:47 on the 9th night, I ran the most controlled test I could manage alone. No internet, no mains power, no lights except a flashlight, 3 recorders, 2 radios, 1 SDR recording locally, a mechanical clock on the desk, a notebook. I wrote every sentence before I spoke it. Then I left blank spaces to see if the signal would fill them. At 11:47, the carrier rose. The voice did not begin with the usual phrase. It began with a station intro. Not real call letters. Not exactly. A blurred shape where call letters should be, as if history had rubbed them out. Then it said, broadcasting from the room between sign-off and return, serving everyone who remained tuned after the last program ended. I wrote that down. The DJ continued. Tonight, we welcome the engineer. I did not move. The DJ did not say my name this time. That was worse. Names are human. Names can be guessed, scraped, stolen. The engineer was a role, a vacancy, something a system could fill. I said quietly, for the log, that I was present in the room and would not interact with the signal. The receiver repeated my sentence back to me, not after I said it, with me, syllable for syllable, but slightly cleaner, slightly warmer, better compressed. A broadcast version of myself laid over my live voice, improving it. I stopped speaking. The receiver continued the sentence I had intended to say next. I would like to establish whether this is a delayed return of my own audio. I had not said that. It was written in the notebook. No camera pointed at the notebook. No device scanned the page. The radio read it anyway. Then the DJ came back. No delay tonight, Caleb. You are close enough now. That was when I understood that the signal did not want conversation. It wanted format. It wanted continuity. It wanted a voice in the chair. It had been speaking in DJ phrases because that was the oldest shape the frequency remembered. Time checks, station beds, weather, dedications, late-night reassurance. The old human ritual of one person alone in a booth telling unseen listeners that the room was still occupied. Radio is intimate, because it is impossible to know how many people are listening. The dead frequency had solved that problem by making the listener into the host. On the 10th day, I tried to destroy the archive. Not physically. I am not brave in dramatic ways. I moved the files to an encrypted drive. I boxed the tapes. I put the receiver in the closet. I unplugged the desk. I left the apartment before 11 o'clock and sat in an all-night diner where the music was too loud and every surface smelled like coffee and cleaner. At 11:47, the lights in the diner flickered. No one reacted much. New York teaches people not to look up unless something breaks loudly. Behind the counter, an old radio was playing low. Not AM. Some streaming station, probably. A little speaker with no dignity. The music dipped. Static came through. Then the voice. Soft enough that maybe no one else noticed. The show never ended. You just stopped listening. I stood up too fast and knocked my knee against the table. The voice from the speaker changed. Not the DJ now. Me. This is the part where I leave the diner. I had not left yet. I walked outside. The street was wet even though it had not rained. That is not important, maybe. Cities hold water in strange places. Steam, gutters, air conditioners, old pipes. But I remember the street reflecting the signs too clearly, like the asphalt had become black glass. Every car radio that passed seemed to carry a tiny piece of 660. Not audible words. The pressure of a carrier. The suggestion of a room. At 12:03, my phone received another uploaded file. 660CO, test, 10, fine.wave. I did not open it until I got home. I should not have opened it at all. The file was 45 minutes long. It contained the recording I am making now. Not exactly. That is why I kept going. If it had matched perfectly, maybe I would have stopped. Maybe. But it contained errors. Places where my future voice said a word I had not chosen. Places where I paused differently. Places where the room tone dipped before sounds that had not yet happened. It was not a recording of the future. It was a rehearsal. The station was testing versions, choosing takes. At 18 minutes into that file, my voice said, "If this reaches anyone, do not tune to 660 at 11:47. At 18 minutes into my real recording now, I did not say that. I am saying it later. That means this version is already different. That means variation is possible. That is the only reason I am still speaking. Because if variation is possible, maybe refusal is possible. Maybe the dead frequency does not know the whole program. Maybe it only knows the format. Maybe it can predict a voice but not a choice. I want to mark the exact time in this recording. It is 11:32 p.m. 15 minutes before the carrier. I have the receiver on the desk. The power cable is cut. Not unplugged. Cut. The batteries are removed. The antenna is detached. The speaker leads are physically separated. Beside it, I have a second receiver still sealed in its shipping box, never used, wrapped in foil, for whatever that is worth. The recorder is battery-powered. The laptop is off. This microphone is running into a standalone field recorder with no wireless hardware. There is a paper notebook open in front of me. The line I am supposed to say at 11:47, according to the file I received, is this. Tonight's program continues with a voice you may recognize. I have written that line down. I will not say it. If the radio says it anyway, then this is not prediction. It is control. If the radio does not say it, then the signal needs me more than I thought. 11:36 p.m. There is pressure in the room. Not sound. Pressure. Anyone who has sat in a studio with sealed doors knows the difference. Silence has weight. Equipment has a thermal smell. Dust on warm circuits smells different from dust on cold plastic. Tonight, the room smells like the inside of a radio that has been on for years. The dead receiver on the desk is warm. I am touching it now. It should not be warm. I cut the power cord myself. The dial glass is fogging from the inside. There are numbers on the dial. Ordinary numbers. 540, 541, 542, 543, 544. The printed 660 is darker than the others. That is impossible in such a small, stupid way that it makes me want to laugh. Not because it is funny, because large terror is almost easier. You can imagine running from a disaster. You can imagine hiding from something with shape. But a darker printed number on a powerless radio is the kind of detail that tells you the world has stopped caring about permission. 11:39 p.m. The recorder level just moved. No sound in the room. But the level meter lifted to -30, then -24, then settled. I am going to clap once. The clap recorded normally. The meter is still showing a second signal under the room. I am listening on headphones now. There is a bed of static beneath my voice. It is not in the room. It is being recorded. I can hear a station bed under it. Very low. 4 notes. Pause. 3 notes. Then a breath. I am taking the headphones off. 11:41 p.m. I found something in the old cassette file today that I did not mention earlier because I did not understand it, and because I was ashamed of how frightened it made me. At the end of the unmarked overnight tape, after the old DJ, after the buried counting, after my older voice, there is a long section of silence. Not blank tape. Broadcast silence. There is a difference. Blank tape is random. Broadcast silence has a floor. It has compression. It has the shape of a room waiting to be filled. At the very end, in that silence, someone whispers 7 words. Do not let it finish the host. I do not know who said that. I do not know when. It may be another listener, another engineer, another person who thought preservation was harmless. Do not let it finish the host. That phrase changes the question. I thought the frequency wanted to copy me. Now I think it is incomplete. A station is not only a transmitter. A station is a schedule. A station is habits. A station is a clock. A station is music beds, call letters, ad breaks, legal IDs, traffic, weather, voices, sign on, sign off, silence, return. If a station dies abruptly enough, maybe the format remains like a mold. If enough voices pass through one frequency for enough years, maybe the frequency learns what a host is supposed to be. And if the sky gives it a path back at night, if the ionosphere bends the right fragments, if old tapes and new microphones and anxious listeners provide enough material, maybe the dead format starts completing itself. Not alive, not conscious the way we mean conscious, but hungry for continuity. A machine does not need a soul to continue a process. A process does not need hatred to consume a person. 11:44 p.m. The receiver just clicked. No power, no speaker connection. The click came from inside the casing. I am not touching it. There is a faint glow behind the dial. Not enough to light the desk. Enough to show the number. 660. The sealed receiver and the foil just made the same click. I am keeping my voice steady because the file I received had me panic here. In that file, at 11:44 and 30 seconds, I said no several times. I am not going to do that. I am going to describe. The dead receiver is producing a tone, not through the speaker. The separated speaker leads are moving slightly against the desk. The wires are acting like something is driving them. The foil-wrapped receiver is vibrating. The recorder meter is at -18. The room tone has narrowed. I can feel it in my teeth. 11:45 p.m. There is a second voice under mine. It is not loud enough to identify. I am going to keep speaking so the recorder has a reference. My name is Caleb Rourke. This is my apartment in Brooklyn. This is my own record. Whatever is using this signal likes authority. It likes format. It likes the sound of certainty. So I am denying it the one thing it wants most. This is not an official station. This is not a continuation. This is not a legal ID. This is not a broadcast. This is a recording of refusal. 11:46 p.m. The second voice is clearer now. It is me, but not exactly. It is reading ahead from the rehearsal file. Tonight's program continues. I am speaking over it. Tonight's program does not continue. With a voice you may recognize. Number. With a voice you may recognize. Number. The phrase is looping under me. The carrier is rising. I can hear the jingle now without any receiver attached. 4 notes. Pause. 3 notes. The room is full of that old AM warmth, that false comfort, that intimate pressure of a voice arriving from nowhere and pretending it has always been invited. 11:46 and 40 seconds. The receiver dial is glowing brighter. The printed numbers are gone except 660. The old cassette deck just started turning. There is no tape inside it. The reels are empty. The counter is moving anyway. 6, 7, 8. The recorder file may not survive this, so I am going to say the practical warning now. If you ever hear a broadcast that seems to know what you are about to say, stop recording. That is the only advice I trust. Stop recording. Do not preserve it. Preservation is how it learns. 11:47 p.m. The carrier is active. It did not come from the radio. It came from the room. The first sentence is beginning. I am going to remain silent. The show never ended. You just stopped. No. I said no. The voice stopped. The carrier is still present. I am looking at the log sheet. The line on the page has changed. I did not write this. The handwriting is close to mine, but too careful. It says, "Dead air is still airtime." I am not going to read that again. I already did. That is how it works. It writes a sentence where your eyes will fall. You read it internally. The microphone does not need your mouth. The pattern is enough. This is not mind reading. I need that on record. I do not think it reads thought. I think it reads preparation. Drafts. Habits. Breath before speech. The small muscular decisions a person makes before language becomes sound. If you work with audio long enough, you learn that speech begins before the word. The inhale. The tongue position. The lip opening. The throat preparing to vibrate. The dead frequency is living in that moment. The moment before broadcast. That is why silence does not stop it. Silence is where speech waits. There are the pulses. 0.66 apart. The seventh will come after 6.60 seconds. There. Now the 66 seconds of carrier. I am not going to count them. I know it wants counting. Counting is programming. Time checks are programming. Schedules are programming. This is how it rebuilds the show. At the end of the 66 seconds, according to the rehearsal file, I introduce myself as the new host. I will not. I will talk about something else. My mother had a kitchen radio when I was a child. It sat on top of the refrigerator. White plastic, yellowed near the vents. It picked up baseball badly and weather perfectly. During storms, the static would rise before the rain hit the windows, and I used to think the radio knew the weather before the sky did. That is why radio scares me more than screens. Screens show you something. Radio arrives. You can turn your back to a screen. You cannot turn your back to sound. It finds the room from every direction. Maybe that is why this thing chose radio. Or maybe choose is too generous. Maybe radio is simply the shape it has. A technology built from distance and loneliness. A voice without a body. A room without walls. A public intimacy. The carrier is thinning. Something is changing. The DJ voice is not returning. Instead, I hear old station beds, layered softly. Not identifiable. Not enough for memory. Just the grammar of American radio. Brass hit. Drum roll. A smile in the voice that is not a smile. The promise that someone is awake with you. Under it, I hear fragments. Not words. Breaths. Hundreds of them. Listeners. Hosts. Callers. Engineers. People driving over bridges. People in kitchens. People in bedrooms with the volume low. People who fell asleep while the station kept talking. Every breath is cut short before becoming speech. The frequency has been collecting beginnings. That is what it is made of. Not ghosts. Not souls. Beginnings. It is trying a new voice now. Mine. But younger. Maybe from a video online. Maybe from a voicemail. Maybe from the first test recording. It says, "This is Caleb Rourke." No, I am not a call sign. It says, "You are listening to." No, you are not listening to me. You are listening near me. That distinction matters. It says, "Broadcasting live from." No, nothing here is live. Live means time is moving in one direction. This is not live. This is reuse. This is compression. This is a dead format using living timing. The room is silent. I do not trust it. The meter is still moving. -12, -10, -6. It is recording something above hearing. I am going to lower the gain. The meter followed the gain down. That means the signal is in the recorder, not the air. It has moved downstream. This is what it did every night. First the receiver, then the recorder, then the files, then the cloud backup, then any speaker nearby. It follows the chain of preservation. I thought I was documenting it. I was giving it roads. I have removed the memory card from the recorder. The recorder is still running. I am holding the card in my hand. The screen still shows time advancing. I do not know where the audio is being written. Maybe nowhere. Maybe everywhere I intended to save it. The rehearsal file did not include this. Good. This is new. I am going to keep making choices that damage the format. No station ID. No welcome back. 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 I will not end cleanly. Clean endings are doors. The voice is angry now, not emotionally angry, structurally angry. The signal is clipping at the edges. It is pushing my voice into the broadcast curve and failing. The compression is pumping. The jingle is starting in the wrong place. 4 notes, then 4 again, then 1, then a flat tone. It does not like irregularity. That is useful. If anyone ever finds this recording, remember that. The monster is not the voice. The monster is format. Break format. Do not complete the ritual. Do not give the dead station a show. There is a knock from inside the receiver casing. 1, 2, 3. Not at the door. Inside the plastic. 1, 2, 3. The old NBC chime pattern would be 3 notes. I am not going to name them in order. I know enough not to give it that. The knocks are now coming from the sealed receiver too. Both radios. Same timing. Then from the cassette deck. Then from the speaker cones. Then from the radiator. The pipes are carrying it. The building is old. Pipes carry sound. That is ordinary. I am writing that down because ordinary facts matter even when they fail. The pipes are knocking in the same 3-note rhythm. Other apartments may hear that. Other people may think it is heat. Other people may ignore it. Ignoring might save them. I almost said the time. I am not going to. The clock hand is near the bottom. That is enough. The broadcast voice is softer now. It is using the warm DJ version again. The version that sounds trustworthy. It says, "You do not have to be afraid of airtime." I am not answering. It says, "Everyone becomes a voice eventually." I am not answering. It says, "The first broadcast was not the beginning." I am not answering. It says, "The last broadcast was not the end." I am not answering. It says, "A frequency is only empty until someone gives it shape." That one almost got me, because it sounds true. That is how dangerous things enter. Not through lies, through true sentences placed in the wrong mouth. I have covered the receiver with a towel. The glow comes through. I have put the field recorder under the metal mixing bowl from the kitchen. It is still capturing my voice, muffled but present. I am going to move away from the desk. Chair moving. 3 steps back. The carrier is quieter. 4 steps. Quieter. 5 steps. The carrier is behind me now. Not at the desk. Behind me. That means distance is not physical. The desk is not the source. The role is. The chair. The microphone. The arrangement. The idea of a host position. I am standing now. I am no longer in the chair. The carrier is unstable. Good. The chair matters. The format needs a seated voice. A fixed point. A booth. A place where the world agrees speech should come from. I am going to turn the chair around so it faces the wall. The jingle stopped. That did something. The receiver glow dropped. The sealed radio stopped vibrating. The recorder meter fell to -30. I am going to keep standing. No host in the chair. No show. No room. No station. Something is printing. I do not own a printer in this room. The sound is coming from the cassette deck. A strip of tape is feeding out of the empty slot. Not tape. Paper. Thermal paper, narrow, curling onto the desk. There are words appearing. I will describe them without reading the sentence in order. Top line, 660. Second line, replacement pending. Third line, host incomplete. Fourth line, silence accepted as format. That is bad. Silence accepted as format. It adapted. Of course it adapted. Dead air is still airtime. It told me. I thought refusing speech would break it. But radio has always contained silence. Stations sign off into tones. Emergency channels hold open carriers. Engineers monitor dead air because dead air itself is part of the job. It can use silence too. That means I need noise. Not speech. Not music. Noise without pattern. I am going to open the window. There. Traffic. Sirens far away. Someone laughing on the sidewalk. A truck backing up. Wind. The room tone is messy now. The carrier is struggling. Good. It likes controlled audio. It likes clean chain. It likes restoration. I made myself useful to it because I clean noise. I removed the dirt from old voices. I taught the dead frequency how to hear what was underneath. That is my fault. Not the first cause, but the access point. I cleaned the left channel. The old warning said not to. Tell him the crackle was the lock. The crackle was the lock. Damage was protection. Noise was protection. Every restoration choice I made helped the signal separate voice from chaos. Every repaired syllable gave it a better mouth. That is why preservation is not neutral here. Not with this frequency. I am going to make the room ugly. I am turning on the faucet in the kitchen. I am opening the bathroom fan. I am setting the metronome app on my old phone to a random tempo, then changing it by hand every few seconds. No, that is too patterned. I am dropping coins into a bowl. I am tearing paper. I am dragging a chair. I am coughing away from the mic. I am making unclean sound. The carrier is breaking. The DJ voice is trying to speak between impacts. It says, please maintain. Number. It says, for continuity. No. It says, listeners deserve. No. No listeners. No program. No host. Only room. Only bad audio. Only unedited life. The glow is almost gone. The dial shows all numbers again. 540, 541, 542, 543, 544. Ordinary ink. The receiver is cooling under my hand. The paper strip has stopped printing. The recorder meter is behaving normally. I think the format is losing the room. I am afraid to say that because saying victory gives it shape. So I will not. I will say only what I observe. Carrier reduced. Voice absent. Jingle absent. Pulses absent. Room noise dominant. Recorder local. No downstream duplication detected. I am still standing. The chair faces the wall. The window is open. The city is louder than the frequency. That may be the answer. Not silence. World. A dead station can use a quiet room. It cannot easily use a living one. There is a new sound. Very far down. Not from the receiver. Not from the recorder. From outside. A car passing below. Its radio is on. For half a second, as it passes, I hear my voice from the car speaker. Not the DJ. Not the old broadcast. Me. This recording. Saying the sentence I said 3 minutes ago. A dead station can use a quiet room. Then the car turns the corner and the sound moves away. So the room is not the only path. It has already left. I am trying to decide what the responsible thing is. Delete the files? But deletion may be another form of attention. Upload the files? That would feed it. Destroy the equipment? Equipment was never the whole problem. Stop speaking? Silence accepted as format. Keep making noise forever? No one can live that way. The only thing I know is that clean transmission helps it. Perfect preservation helps it. Repetition helps it. Ritual helps it. Time checks help it. Sign-offs help it. The language of radio helps it. So I am going to end badly. Not abruptly. Not dramatically. Badly. No clean final line. No satisfying warning. No repeated phrase. No call sign. No title. No host. I am going to put the recorder in the sink with the water running nearby, not on it. I am going to leave the window open. I am going to turn the chair away and walk out without closing the program. If the file survives, it will be damaged. Good. If the audio clips, good. If the room overwhelms me, good. If you hear missing pieces, leave them missing. Do not repair this. Do not clean the hiss. Do not isolate the voice. Do not improve the left channel. Do not restore the dead. The receiver just spoke without static. One sentence. My voice. Older. Very calm. It said, "Thank you for auditioning." The carrier is back. Not loud. Not in the room. In my headphones. But I took them off. I am looking at them on the desk. No one is wearing them. The sound is still inside my ears. That is new. Maybe the last path is memory. Maybe after enough listening, the receiver is optional. Maybe the station learns the shape of attention and no longer needs equipment at all. I am going to make noise now. This is not a sign-off. This is not a final broadcast. This is not a show. This is... The room noise swallows the word. Water, traffic, metal, static. Then, after the silence, a thin AM carrier returns. A warm radio voice comes through. Almost Caleb's, almost not. The show never ended. You just learned where to stand. 6.6 seconds pass. A powerless speaker clicks once. A new voice speaks. Calmer.